Perfect. All right. Happy Thursday, guys. Welcome to the Build Mastermind. Every single week, we meet nations across the US. It's myself, my husband, Mike, and our business partners, Jim Black and Ed Stroud, who are both out, how dare they, on vacation today. So today we're going to discuss language patterns to convert, especially in a tough market. I don't know about you guys, but in the Pacific Northwest, we're experiencing an incredibly unique market where there is a significant amount of inventory in some price points in some areas, and then in other areas things are moving quickly and we're seeing multiple offers. So it's a really weird environment. But we're getting a lot of different objections, right? And then pile that on with changes in buyer agency and brokerage agreements and needing agreements to show houses, and you've kind of got a recipe for like, how do I explain what the heck is going on, right? Not just to myself, not just to my teammates, but to agents. So Mike has kind of come up with some really, really good points, some proven language patterns to overcome some typical objections. We're going to go through those. And then we'll kind of open it up and love to discuss a little bit more kind of buyer agency stuff and discussing what that's going to look like. So Novak, do you want to step in and share some of your proven language patterns and the objections those go with?
Yeah, I was just trying to think like what are the ones that I hear a lot and maybe that I'm hearing a lot right now as well. These are ones that we're role playing a lot, and I just wanted to kind of go through these with you guys and give you a framework on how to handle them and get through these because what I hear a lot of times is I hear agents they haven't practiced and they don't know what to say when they hear something they're not expecting. Like something comes up and they're like, I didn't think about that. And so they're underprepared to answer the question in a qualified way that brings value to the person, that challenges their thinking, that moves them to the outcome that the agent wants, which is ultimately an appointment, right? So the first one I have is that I'm going to wait for rates to come down. You ever heard that before? Been hearing that a lot for a couple of years now. So, this is a very, very common one. Unfortunately, rates are coming down. So awesome. I'm glad that you're waiting for rates to come down because they're coming down right now. Let's have that conversation. I think the most important part of this kind of about this language pattern is that you help the person understand the correlation between rates coming down and prices going up. Those two things work in reverse of one another. So when someone says, hey, I'm waiting for rates to come down, you have to be able to explain to them that, hey, that is also waiting for prices to go up. So if you just wait indefinitely, the price is just going to continue to climb. It's just that simple. You got to also explain to them they can refinance the rate that they have in the house. They can't refinance the price that they paid for it. If you use a language pattern like that, again, it's going to click with them super well. We've all heard that really stupid language pattern that a lot of mortgage lenders are passing around. What was it, Rachel? Like date the rate, marry
Date the rate. Yep. Marry the house, date the rate.
Bleh, makes me want to throw up. But there's other truth to it. And so like if you think about that, it does make sense. Like, the rate you're going to be able to change later when rates do drop down. But if you're able to buy at today's prices, you're going to save a ton of money potentially. Like in our market, just, in the last 4 years, the prices have gone up about 60%. So those people that were waiting, they're still waiting, obviously. And they're going to pay a lot more when they actually buy. So the last thing I can give you for the person that's waiting for rates to come down is the ability to transition the conversation from an interest rate conversation and dialogue to a monthly payment dialogue, because people don't really actually understand the correlation, like exactly how much does a 6% interest rate mean to me in a monthly payment if I buy a house. So you could say something like, Rachel, I totally appreciate and understand that you want to get the best rate possible. However, I'm just curious, what's the ideal monthly payment for you? Like, what's the most you want to pay per month if you're going to buy a house? And when you ask that, it kind of reframes the question and the conversation a little bit. If you guys go to like a car lot, I'm not telling you to become a used car salesman. If you go to a car lot, they never tell you how much the car costs. They tell you how much it costs per month. And that's a really important framework into real estate as well. So, Rachel, do anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really similar to, when you're meeting with a seller and you're talking about listing office commissions. A common objection is, of course, well, what is your fee or what do you charge? And it's simply at the end of the day, like, well, is it more important what you pay the agent, or is it more important the cash that you get in your pocket after the sale? And it's the exact same thing here, right? For the buyers, like, is it important to you what the actual rate is, or is it important to you what you're paying for per month for the perfect house for the season in your life? And so I think making sure that you're reframing what's important and getting to the root, because it's not actually the rate that's really important. What is actually important is their financial capacity to get the house, that they're wanting, right? Their ideal house right now. So just a
Right.
reframe.
So hopefully you're taking notes on this. Hopefully if people watching replays, they're taking notes. It's not just purely entertainment. I'm not that entertaining. We want you to have tactile information. So again, like the key things to write down on this one, if you're waiting for rates to drop down, establish the correlation between rates going down, prices going up. Make sure they understand they can refinance the rate later, but they cannot refinance the price to pay for the home, and transition the conversation to monthly payment from the rate as fast as possible. Do those 3 things, you're gonna be good to go. This is actually a very easy one to get past. How about the next one, Rachel? I'm waiting for prices to drop before I buy.
Yeah. Has in any market, anybody on this call, raise your hand or you put in the chat, have prices of homes overall gone down year over year in the last 10 years in any markets? I'm actually curious.
It dipped in ours, right? Like I think we were down like 3 or 4% in 23 from 22, something like that.
Okay. And so if somebody is concerned about prices dropping, I think the biggest question really is to establish the correlation between inventory and prices. We are still, in our market at least, we are still in a very much a seller's market, still under 2 months of inventory, which means prices are not going down. So like you mentioned, Michael, they went down, they dipped a little bit year over year. Most of the people who are buying homes right now, I think we just had this conversation in our team. Most of the people buying homes right now, they're not looking to sell it next year. And I would ask that question. So I understand that you're waiting for, prices to go down. Is it important to you if you buy that you are going to be able to sell for profit in 1 year? Probably not. They're probably buying the house for 5, 7, 10 years or more. So making that correlation that you're not looking to make a profit off the house. You're looking for somewhere to live. You're looking for stability in your payment, right? Do you want to talk about the inventory versus prices, Michael?
Yeah, I always explain to people like, hey, everyone asks me, are prices going to come down? I get asked that question multiple times per day. And I tell people like, hey, I don't have a crystal ball to that answer, but what I do have is a lot of data to look at. And the most important data point that I'm looking at to know where prices are going is simply inventory. Because I know when inventory goes down, prices go up. When inventory rises, prices flatten or go down. And right now in our market for the last 6 years, inventory has gone down and thus prices have gone up. And if you look at the historical trend, they've gone up like, 60% over the last 7 years. A lot, it's a huge, huge, huge increase over that period of time. A lot of people are trying to time the real estate market, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And so you want to be able to challenge that thinking as well. I like to draw the parallel to day trading in the stock market. Like if you're trying to day trade and you're speculating, you're just going to make a super quick buck, get in, get out of the market. Buying a house is probably not the smartest thing to do. But however, if you're looking at a house like it's going to be a long-term investment, like it's going to provide massive stability for your family, then you're going to be good to go. Like over time, you're for sure going to make money. History has told us that for decades now. And so if you're going to stay in the home for 5 or more years, it really doesn't matter when you buy. Like you just buy when the timing is best. You shouldn't try to time the market. You're not day trading. So I try to draw that parallel.
Exactly. Has anybody run into this objection recently?
Jen, you're very quiet.
Well,
You probably have some very interesting thoughts on all of these. Love to hear from you.
yeah, I think that it boils down to taking these concepts and making them as simple as possible. Like if you can explain it to your kid, your 12-year-old kid or something along those lines, and they can make sense to them, you can really handle this objection with any buyer that you might be chatting with. And I think it's important to practice getting good at making it a simple concept. When you're able to do that and it just falls out of your mouth without thinking about it, then suddenly you are providing that confidence, because a lot of this objection comes from uncertainty and fear for people. They don't want to invest in something and have it bottom out underneath them immediately. It's all fear-based. And so when you can speak confidently to it and incredibly simply, I think that that's how you're going to really provide that guidance that these buyers and just the people in general need to hear from you.
Mhm.
Yeah, you nailed it. Most objections coming from exactly that, fear and uncertainty or misinformation. You just don't know any better. And so our job is to make sure you have the information, you actually understand what this information means and how to translate this into actionable items.
Yeah, part of
Christine,
the information on that, Mike, like we've talked about it, I think knowing your this is Chuck, knowing your area is really good. In our county, we're going to double the population in the next 15 years. And so I just tell people, listen, if the population doubles in 15 years, all those people have to go somewhere. They have to live somewhere. And what do you think is going to happen to prices if our population doubles? And that seems to like turn on a light bulb, like, oh yeah, prices are going to go up.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
So knowing it is.
Christine, I'd love to hear what you kind of talked about. So you said that out of town buyers are wanting to offer less because their markets took a beating. They've got kind of a twofold mindset.
Well, since I've been doing this for a while, I've seen kind of shifts of a while. A lot of our market relies on incoming buyers. And so that's really what drives our prices up, because local industry kind of caps out for the local people that grew up here, caps their income. And so a lot of our appreciation comes from that fresh capital. And I've noticed my California buyers or my people coming from Colorado or Florida, their markets have tempered a little bit. And so they have less when they come here than what they first had, their budget, they're kind of pulling their budget back, or they're offering less because they're selling for less than they had anticipated. And some of them, they're pretty savvy. So they'll say, well, if our market's doing it, yours might be doing it next. It just reminds me of, prior market cycles. And I'm just maybe anticipating that our appreciation might not be as high this year as, we kind of adjust towards that, because there was a stat from last year's sales that a lot of our surrounding counties, there's no industry. So any new buyer pool comes from out of area, and they come with about 40% more in purchase power. So they've kind of priced out some of the local buyers because of that. But if they come in and they're not, offering over ask, and they're coming in, with a different negotiation strategy, I just wonder what that'll do.
How have you been setting expectations for that now, like with your buyers, if they're from out of state and they took a beating on their house that they sold?
Yeah, I don't personally work as many buyers unless there's just overflow and I'm trying to like catch what's spilling over. So this has been more people that I started with in March and then are now finally sold. And so I didn't get to set the expectation as much, because now we're in like a reactionary phase of they thought they were going to have 100 grand more. And now we're looking at buying because they've sold finally. But I did use it hopefully to answer you a little bit better on a listing appointment yesterday of just like, hey, look, this is what I'm seeing. And so if buyers are talking about feeling the pinch a little bit, you will want to price appropriately so you are not then chasing a potentially cooling market. I don't know if this is a short-term correction or, we're headed to a new market, but either way, you want to get ahead of it. So
I like that. One of the things that we've done is we will continue to provide like really dynamic market updates to people, like both buyers and sellers, just because the last 3 years, really going back to 22, the market's been very much a roller coaster, and it's been like, whoa, okay, I got it figured out, then I don't have it figured out. Like it just changes so fast. And it's done that again in our market this year, where the market was really competitive to start with. And now the months of inventory supply has literally tripled in the last 90 days. So it's like this whiplash effect. And we can feel that as agents, and our sellers, our buyers are definitely feeling that as well. So some of these conversations we're having with sellers, hey, we were in your living room 4 months ago, and the market today is not the market it was back then. And I got to tell you, give you an update on what I'm seeing and what the data shows, and kind of signals to us on where things could be heading and what it means to you as a seller, as a buyer right now. So
yeah,
I think those continual updates are super important.
Mhm.
This is a big one though, 'cause, like the waiting for prices to drop, like that's going to be given to you in any market, whether if it's
Mm.
a challenging market like we find ourselves in now. I even heard that in 21 and early 2020, when prices were going up 20%, like I'm going to wait for it to drop. And, those people that waited are now going to pay $250,000 more than they would have if they would have bought then. So,
Mhm.
what about this one, Jen? I'll call you when I find the right home.
That's always a fun one. That will be, that's when I usually will say, okay, well, if the right home comes on the market and then we start the process of getting prepared, that's when another buyer can come in and get under contract with that home right out from under you. So that would be incredibly heartbreaking, wouldn't it? Now is when we should start the process of getting your ducks in a row so that when we find that home and it comes on market, we can go after it immediately. And then you have way more success at winning that home.
Yeah.
Along that same vein too, a lot of times when they say that, they make it sound like they're waiting. And then you say, I'm just curious if you're waiting or you're not quite ready, what would happen if the right home did come on the market? How would we handle that situation? And then they'll go, well, sell first. And you're like, oh, you do have to sell first. So you should probably talk about what that would look like if you do have to sell first. I'm like, because they don't even know what ducks they're needing to get in a row until you start
exactly.
outlining it.
Completely.
Exactly.
You just have to pick apart where that thought is coming from, why they're saying that. Usually it has to do with some sort of hesitation to take actionable steps. Either, again, they're fearful of committing to something that they don't understand the environment of the market quite well, or they do have to sell and that just seems like a huge overwhelm to them. And so they're like, it's worth it to me if the house is in front of me. And you have to pick apart what exactly is going through their mind by asking those questions and leveling with them and making that conversation more than surface level. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to help provide that guidance that they actually truly need.
The buyer that needs to sell is a really easy one on this one, because in our market, you only have 5 business days to list your home once you're off accepted. So I'll usually use a language pattern like, hey, Jen, I love that you'd want to go look at that home if it came on the market and that you want to take a look at it. However, the reality of the situation is we would not be in a competitive situation to actually put an offer on that house because we haven't addressed your current home. You have to list your home within 5 business days when you get an offer accepted. And for many of our clients, they're starting that process 2, 3, even 4 months before they want to list their home. So for most people, 5 days is way too fast to rush putting their home to the market. And we don't want you to end up homeless. So we really want to figure out how to sequence that best,
The other piece you can add to that is, if you want your home to shine as best as possible, so you do net the most you possibly can, even in a contingent situation like this, we certainly don't want to spend only 5 days getting it ready. We want to make sure that when you do go on market to buy this next home with your current home proceeds, you get the most proceeds you possibly can. And that means that you have to actually do a little preparation.
Right. The next one I've got for you is not an objection from a lead. It's more of a language pattern that I want to share with you that was shared with us like 4 or 5 years ago from Robbie T over at Hatch Coaching. And I call this the squeeze question. He never really like named it anything, but it always like seemed like it forced a squeeze or like a Y in the road. When a conversation, like you're not sure if you should set an appointment, you're not sure if you should nurture the person, like you're not really sure where this call is going. And I'll share with you this language pattern because I think it squeezes the conversation to go one way or the other. One direction is that you set the appointment, and the other direction is that you just continue to nurture that person until they are ready to have the appointment. And so that language pattern is simply this: if the ideal home came on the market the next 30 days, would you want to go look at that home or would you pass up on that opportunity?
Very similar to what Christine shared as well. Yeah.
This is powerful, right? And the reason this is powerful is because most agents ask a very overwhelming question, not knowing how overwhelming it is. If I say, Jen, when would you like to buy a home? How do you even answer that question? Like, that is overwhelming. Like, I don't even know so like the buyer typically won't even give you an answer because they don't know what the answer is. So they just give you like a defensive reflexive answer, like, I don't know, the next
when
year
prices come down, or
Yeah.
next spring, or summertime 2026, or whatever.
We haven't done a great job of making it easy for them to articulate what their timing truly is. So this question is just very simple. Like anyone, any buyer can understand this without feeling overwhelmed, which is why I love it so much. So this really simplifies the timing. It reduces the overwhelm. And if they say, yeah, I'd go look at that home, then awesome. The first step is to really sit down with me for 20 to 30 minutes so I can walk you through the home buying process, get you up to speed in the market, and identify exactly what we're looking for in your next home. Like, go ahead and close that person to the consultation. If they say no, I don't want you just to stop right there. I want you to say, okay, totally understand that it might be too soon to go look at that home. Tell me more about why you wouldn't want to go take a look. You know what I mean? And they're going to say, well, whatever's really going on. Like, I'm just not ready, or I've gotten pre-approved. Like, the real reason they're delaying it is likely to come out at that point. Make sense? Anything to add to that, Rachel?
No, I think you nailed it. Like that's exactly why it's called a squeeze question, right? Like most leads aren't going to know how to answer questions because their sales defense is up so high typically that they don't want to give information that could be used against them, right? Or they don't want to fall into like a bait and switch situation. So if you just ask very plainly, like, would you want to go see that home or would you pass up? And it very much clarifies for them also that they probably didn't really realize is, how serious am I? Am I wanting to go see something that quickly? Like, if so, okay, I got stuff to do. If not, if I'm just looking, they'll know that as well. So I think it's just a great way to suss out just their timing, not whether or not they're, I hate the buyers or liars thing personally, because I don't think they really are. I think it really comes down to they don't know what they don't know. So therefore they don't know how to ask or answer things. So I think that question is fantastic in regards to being able to help clarify their timing, both for them and for us.
I think the other part with that too is agents need to be kinder and not assume every call needs an objection handled. Like sometimes they're just not ready and you just call them back a little bit further down the road. Like I feel like sometimes it's the right script, but the person's really not ready. And so they just hammer that appointment and then they're upset with the results, like it's the tone. We get a little tone deaf.
Yeah.
I think that's spot on. Yeah.
You have to be very good at picking up the subtleties in people's voices when you ask this question. And you have to know when you're going to push them away or when you're going to pull them closer to you. And that's where the art of lead conversion really comes in. You know what I mean? Like that's a skill that is acquired over time. It's very difficult to just tell you like, hey, push this hard. Like you have to be able to feel it in the conversation and the tonality and the way the person answers your questions. But it's very important. Like you don't want to push them away. And a lot of like we're always talking about building pipelines in this business. It's awesome to build a pipeline. Like your best appointments will come from the people that you call 4, 5, 6 times, not the person you just call the first time and set an appointment off. Like that person's going to have trust now established. You've probably watched some videos of they know who you are. So when they are ready to do something, if you keep calling them, they're going to use you more likely. So great point.
Well, I think that like with some of my newer buyers agents, like sometimes they were having consultations and getting people signed that were in no way, shape, or form ready or able to buy. Like, so I was like, you got them willing to commit to you, but they're actually still not a buyer. Do you know what I mean? Like there's multiple factors here, like yay on the appointment, but also like maybe you didn't need to hammer that appointment because they really aren't able to buy yet.
Yeah.
How do you control going into that? Is that your first conversation you're having with them, or?
Well, I think if people pause for just a moment and ask a few like, well, what has you waiting? Or what, like if they don't have a job or they're independent business owners or just got divorced, or like if there's things could make it difficult to be approved, then those are depth questions there. It's not a I'm not willing to buy, I might not be able to buy. And then it's a different consultation, so if you start and like you were saying, like if it's a pipeline thing that you're most focused on, then the ones you worked on 9 months ago start sifting now, but you have to be comfortable with the long game where so many people want to make one prospecting hour and nail a client. And so they just hammer the wrong people.
Yeah. We have kind of on our team, in our lead conversion SOPs, we have a red flags list. And so if any of these red flags are present, we automatically will not set the appointment, So I think it's important to quantify when you should not set it, because the last thing you want to do is take up your time setting an appointment with somebody that's not qualified or not ready to actually meet. So you got to really flush down the phone. You know, we've had some new ISAs on our team over the last few years, and sometimes I'll go to these appointments and like, this isn't really a buyer consultation. This is really like actually a phone call that's happening in person, because we haven't even like had the hard conversations yet to see if buying a home makes sense or see if you're really qualified. So it's definitely definitely part of it.
I was also thinking that once you do that question, that's the why in the road, and they say, yeah, I probably would go take a look at it. And then you say, okay, well, we should sit down and go through this process together. And they still have hesitancy. I feel like at that point, either you haven't earned trust enough yet, or they're just still fearful of committing, right? Because there's still some fear in the air. And that's why I like your language, Mike, that it's a big financial decision. And wouldn't you want to plan and prepare for such a large financial decision? I think that language is a true follow-up to really flesh out what they're fearful of. And I feel like it's a 1-2 punch typically, like they go hand in hand in conversations I've had.
Yeah, absolutely. The last one I've got for you is I want to go through the listing agent. Chuck, are you still on? Do you want to handle this one, buddy? I think he's on the phone. I can hear him in the office over there. All right, Jim, that leaves you to handle it.
Sure. I would usually say, well, you could call the listing agent. However, that listing agent is working directly for the seller. When you have agency with an agent, the agent's legally required to look out for their financial best interests, negotiate on their behalf, make sure they get the most amount of money possible. And if you go directly to them, then they're beholden to their client, not to you. So anything that you share with them, you're going to have the opportunity of taking away some of your negotiating power. That's why you want to have an agent that is beholden to you and is there to make sure your financial best interests are looked after and you get the home for the best possible deal, the least amount of money. It's a conflict of interest for you to go to that listing of agent, which is why, it'd be really important for you to have your own representation.
It's also good to know your stats. If you're like, hey, my list to sales price ratio is XYZ, and my list to sales price ratio for my buyers is XYZ. Like, do you want to come up against me as a listing agent, or do you want me on your side?
Love it.
I love that.
I think it's important you touched on this, Jim, that the only person that actually wins in the dual agency situation is actually the agent, because they get paid twice. It doesn't typically result in the buyer or selling saving money. Sometimes it does, but at what cost is really the question, and you definitely don't know who the agent's looking out for at that point. It's a massive conflict of interest, in my opinion. In Washington, it's legal to represent the buyer and seller at the same time. We don't do it on our team. To me, it doesn't make sense at all. It's just like a lawsuit waiting to happen in my mind. And I just am very clear with buyers, like, hey, if you want to offer one of my listings, I'll connect you with another agent on our team, and they'll have to represent you for that one offer. If that offer doesn't work out, then I'll take you back over at that point. That's in your best interest. And people appreciate that transparency and that honesty.
For sure.
All right. These are the 5 I got for you. I put these up in the chat box. So if you want the Google Doc, you can grab it, you can print it, you can role play these. I kind of put the psychology behind each of the frameworks below the question, so you can understand the context of this and not just try to like memorize verbatim what we're saying. What's something else that you guys are maybe struggling with that we should talk about that's been an objection that's been really difficult in the current market for you to overcome?
Feel like I've been stuck on my buy sells. We don't have a stipulation on how quickly you have to put it in the market. It's just if the agent's savvy enough to negotiate it in. But we don't have enough good inventory to make people excited enough to move. And we don't necessarily have that COVID crazy market where I'm positive I could sell their house in an hour. So it just takes a lot of logistics, and I have their loyalty, but I have probably 10 or 15 people that have been stuck for about a year and a half because the numbers on either side neither side really feels compelling or exciting. You know, like years ago, there was enough inventory to buy where you're like, look, we can get you an opportunity on the buy side. The sell side might be a little bit harder. So let's go ahead and sell, you know, and then during that COVID market, it was like, we know you're going to sell. So let's find you the house and then put your house on the market. But they're both a little bit this way right now. And so I just feel like there's a lot of work for not much results on my side. It'll happen, but I'm not articulating or finding a compelling enough reason. And when that unicorn comes, we're just not ready.
I think we're seeing that too. Like like Mike mentioned, our inventory has gone up. It's tripled in the last 90 days. And so we have a couple of houses that we listed, accepted a contingent offer, and the houses are sitting, right? So like now these sellers are stuck because those sellers are stuck. They really want to buy it. But Jen and I actually were just having a conversation last week, Jen, that we were talking about if you have buyers, if they know kind of the neighborhood, the style of home that they're looking for, it's very possible that there are people out there who may be interested in selling, but just haven't put it on the market, right? Or in the exact same situation that you're in. We have friends down just a little bit south of us in Washington that they found buyers off market, right? And it was literally like sending out basically a 1-page summary of what they'd be willing to pay, the terms that they would do, the timeline for closing, and they mass sent it out to a couple of different neighborhoods that these buyers who also had to sell wanted to purchase in, and they ended up getting a couple of bites, right? Worst case scenario, the people throw it away. Second worst case scenario, the people call you and say like, oh, I'm not wanting to sell right now, but I am thinking next year. Now you have somebody to follow up with, right? So I think this is the kind of, I think this is the kind of market that we have to get a little bit creative. We have to think a little bit outside the box, because most people will be so nervous about either trusting an agent or putting the house in the market because they have nowhere to sell. If they're all of a sudden presented a potential opportunity that's off market and it makes sense both sides, and you can still work into the economics of the offer getting compensated, right? It could make sense that way.
I like the idea of the one page of a 1-page offer though, because I think that the letters have been done so much that people just don't take them seriously. And I was like, God, what can you do that seems different but isn't a waste of? So I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and make it super easy on them, right? Like at the top of the offer, be like, hey, this is what my clients are willing to pay. This would be your cost to sell. Put in have a line, put in your mortgage balance and do some math. Like, would you, so they are now filling out like this little offer thing. Well, how much money could I get selling my house to these people? So I think making it really easy, making it, at least presenting it as an opportunity that they may not know that they had.
Grab for a listing. It doesn't
Totally.
sound like a solicitation that agents have done under false pretense. It sounds like I really have some potential, which you do. So I like
Totally.
that.
Exactly.
Any others that we want to talk about? Dave, I saw you hopping on.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You just got done working out.
Thanks. Hey, thanks. I didn't want to miss the call, and I had 2 listings to meet with. So, yeah, I like what the last person just said in regards to one of the challenges here. I'm in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and we have people that want to list, and they're concerned about buying. So they know the home is still gonna sell, and it's gonna sell quick. Maybe not as quick as it would 3 or 4 months ago, but it's still gonna sell relatively quick. And the question is, well, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna buy the other place? We don't want to do it on a contingency. They don't necessarily want to do a bridge loan. And are we even gonna find a place? Because there's still low inventory and we're getting multiple offers and bids, and it doesn't mean they're all going over list, but I could see the challenge for people that want to sell and go into a new place. And are we doing it? Of course we are. There's a lot of logistics, but at the same time, it's getting them to feel comfortable with it. So what do you do? Not what you do, but what would you say is something that's good to share with them so they feel a little bit more comfortable, like, hey, this is going to be a risk, but we've done it, and we've done it, and I think we could do it with you too.
What would you say for that, Rach?
If that even made sense.
Yeah, I'm running it through my brain here.
And a lot of the people have kids. Some of them are transitioning seniors where it's very nichey, the place that we're moving them out of
Yeah.
maybe a split level into a condo, but oh, it has to be in one town in these 1 or 2 developments. I mean, pretty nichey stuff. And we're getting them in, right? Maybe just using the track record that I have, say, I can't guarantee it. Our track record does show that we have. It's just making them feel more comfortable to get that listing out there and to get them to start buying.
I think there might be something to say as far as providing them options, right? Like if you can, there's the bridge loan, like you said, there's contingency, but what other options can you scrounge up to get creative? And maybe they won't be the right option, but giving them a menu of options will make them feel like they have choice. And that will eliminate some of their choice fatigue. For example, one thing that we've had some success with on our team is a company called Homelight. And it's sort of like, in a nutshell, sort of like a bridge loan situation, although Homelight will actually provide them their down payment to get pre-approved. They move forward with their purchase offer. They get under contract and then they have 6 months to sell their home. It's not a bridge loan. It's not a HELOC. You know, there's different terms, of course, involved, but it's an option. And so having that available to describe to them, whatever is available in your area, I think Homelight might be something to investigate. That can help them feel like it's less make or break. Like, you know, they have to do a contingency or they have to put their home on the market first, and then they're concerned about being homeless. But it's like a psychological thing to help them.
I like that psychological thing to help them. The menu and Homelight option. And maybe Homelight isn't here, but there might be something like that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Cool. All right. We're out of time for the day today, guys, but we'll be back next Thursday again. Do you remember what we're talking about next week, Rach, off the top of your head?
I don't off the top of my head. I know that there's a lot. If you're, especially if you're with Real, Sharon does have like an awesome, he's putting together NAR minutes, basically like open kind of Q&A sessions. And then next Wednesday, the 14th, he also is doing like a whole buyer agency kind of rep discussion as well. So hit us up if you want those links, if you're not with Real. You know, for us, like we're connecting with a lot of team leaders in our market to discuss the form changes in our MLS, as well as kind of keeping our team, you know, up to date in regards to the changes that are going to be made. So a lot of changes coming down the pike. I don't think that it's necessarily important for us to talk about the lawsuit and all that kind of stuff with our clients, but they're going to see headlines, you know, especially as the year ends and as we round the corner into next spring. It's gonna be really important that we know exactly how to articulate how we get paid, and then of course literally figure out how we write into the economics of offers and contracts commissions for ourselves on the buy side especially. So would encourage definitely everybody, if you don't have the links that are access to that, hit me up. I'm happy to share those with you guys. But some good stuff. And then yes, build next Thursday. We'll see you on there.
See you guys.
Enjoy, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.